Hey, I'm going to continue reading from my book. A Splendid Little War. At the beginning of 1898, at the request of the American consul in Cuba, President McKinley sent the second-class battleship USS Maine to Cuba to protect American interests. As the ship sat in the Havana harbor, a major explosion occurred, killing most of the Maine's officers and crew. The American press exploited the explosion, blaming it on Spanish saboteurs. They published hundreds of editorials calling for revenge, inflaming the American people, and inciting them to take action to protect the Cubans and avenge the deaths of the main officer and crew members. With Americans across the nation chanting the battle cry, "Remember the Maine!" The United States declared war on Spain, justifying the action under the guise of bringing peace to Cuba. The war, which lasted only a little over 3 months, was fought both in the Caribbean and in the Philippines. Even before the war had been declared, the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, Theodore Roosevelt, secretly had sent the American fleet in the Pacific to take over the Philippines in case the United States went to war with Spain. Many historians believed that the war was unjustified. Nonetheless, they concur that by the time it was over, it had a profound effect on America's status in the world. The United States emerged from the war as a world power with possessions in the Caribbean and in the Pacific. Victory over Spain brought the Americans Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. During an interview at the White House, President McKinley justified his decision to lay claim to the Philippines. When I next realized that the Philippines had dropped into our lives, I confess I did not know what to do with them. I walked the floor of the White House night after night until midnight. I am not ashamed to tell you, gentlemen, that I went down on my knees and prayed to Almighty God for light and guidance more than one night. And one night late, it came to me this way: that we could give them back to Spain. That would be cowardly and dishonorable. That we could not turn them over to France or Germany, our commercial rivals in the Orient. That would be bad business and discreditable. That we could not leave them to themselves. They were unfit for self-government, and they would soon have anarchy and misrule worse than Spain's was. And that there was nothing left for us to do but to take them all and to educate the Filipinos and uplift and civilize and Christianize them, and by God's grace do the very best for them as our fellow men for whom Christ also died. And then I went to bed and went to sleep. And the next morning I sent for the chief engineer of the War Department, or map maker, and I told him to put the Philippines on the map of the United States. And there they are, and there they will stay while I am president. McKinley's basic rationale was used over and over again from that time forward and into the 1900s to justify American expansion and empire building, as the United States annexed the territory of Hawaii, added Wake Island and American Samoa to its overseas empire, and assumed the role of international policeman in world affairs. Throughout the 1900s, both Theodore Roosevelt and William Howard Taft, Americans actively supported the nation's aggressive foreign policy. Americans knew that President Roosevelt was a major advocate of American expansionism. He had made his position clear in 1899, advising Congress and the American people that Americans could not stay huddled within our borders and avow ourselves merely an assemblage of well-to-do hucksters who care nothing for what happens beyond. Such a policy would defeat even its own end, for as the nations grow to have ever wider and wider interests and are brought into closer and closer contact. If we are to hold our own in the struggle for naval and commercial supremacy, we must build up our power within our own borders. We must build the Isthmian Panama Canal, and we must grasp the points of vantage which will enable us to have our say in deciding the destiny of the oceans of the East and West. Roosevelt set a course for America and Americans in the rapidly approaching new century. The 20th century looms before us, big with the fate of many nations. Let us therefore boldly face the life of strife, resolute to do our duty well and manfully, resolute to uphold righteousness by deed and by word, resolute to be both honest and brave, to serve high ideals, yet to use practical methods. Above all, let us shrink from no strife, moral or physical, within or without the nature, provided we are certain that the strife is justified, for it is only through strife, through hard and dangerous endeavor, that we shall ultimately win the goal of true national greatness. Throughout the 1900s, Roosevelt sought to promote democracy and economic growth all over the world and to protect American interests in the Western Hemisphere. He had no qualms about using force or threatening to use it to achieve these ends. This was the crux of his big stick foreign policy model after one of his favorite West African proverbs. Speak softly and carry a big stick. You will go far. This policy led to American intervention in several international quarrels, and America and its president recognized by historians as an international policeman. Please rate, subscribe, and comment down below. Bye! And if you're on TikTok, please like and follow me. Bye!